They told me the footprints stopped at the tree line. The problem is, I still have the photographs, and the tracks keep extending every time I look. I was ordered to sign a statement declaring the entire incident a navigation error. 3 months of medical leave, they said. Stress-related hallucinations brought on by extreme cold exposure. The official record lists our patrol as successful with no unusual findings. But I kept copies of everything. The radio logs, the GPS coordinates, the photographs of what we found walking in the snow. And last week, I received a call from an unlisted number. The voice on the other end was mine, repeating our final radio transmission word for word. The line went dead before I could respond. The call came in February 15th, 1989, at 0630 hours from RCMP Detachment Whitehorse. We were stationed at Forward Operating Base Cluane, 63 kilometers northeast of Haines Junction, conducting routine cross-border coordination with U.S. Border Patrol. I was Constable First Class David Hendricks, attached to Northern Division Special Operations Unit. The mission was standard winter patrol and wellness check. 3 missing hunters reported overdue by family in Anchorage, last known position approximately 40 kilometers inside Canadian territory along the Alsek River drainage. The briefing took place in the operations shack at 800 hours. Staff Sergeant Morrison ran the show, pointing to a topographical map spread across the aluminum table. Red pushpins marked the hunters' intended route through the Cluane National Park Reserve. Blue squares indicated our planned checkpoint sequence. Morrison outlined standard cold weather protocols. Radio checks every 2 hours, emergency beacon activation if temperature dropped below -40, strict adherence to established trail markers. Our team consisted of 6 personnel. Corporal Janet Reeves handled navigation. 15 years northern experience, never missed a checkpoint. Constable Mike Torino managed communications, carried 2 backup radio batteries and emergency satellite phone. Dr. Sarah Chen accompanied us as medical officer, her first winter assignment but solid credentials from emergency medicine in Toronto. Constable Rick Palmer served as our tracker, trained by indigenous guides in traditional snow reading techniques. Private Danny Kowalski covered logistics, maintained our equipment inventory and supply manifest. I carried overall operational command and liaison responsibilities with U.S. counterparts across the border. Morrison emphasized the routine nature of the mission. The missing hunters were experienced outdoorsmen, likely delayed by weather conditions or equipment malfunction. Our job was to establish their last known position and coordinate helicopter extraction once visibility improved. Standard procedures applied: document everything, maintain communication schedules, no deviation from planned route without authorization. We departed base camp at 10:30 hours on snowshoes, following established winter trail markers through heavy spruce forest. External temperature measured -32 Celsius with light snow falling. Visibility remained adequate for the first 6 kilometers. Radio check with base proceeded normally at 12:30 hours. Our position matched GPS coordinates exactly. Everything functioned according to protocol. The first tracks appeared at 13:47 hours, approximately 9 kilometers from our starting point. Palmer spotted them while conducting routine trail assessment near a frozen stream bed. Human footprints in fresh snow, leading northwest toward the tree line. Size appeared consistent with adult male, possibly wearing standard winter boots. Print depth suggested normal body weight distribution. No unusual characteristics observed during initial examination. Palmer estimated the tracks were made within the previous 6 hours based on snow accumulation patterns. Wind conditions had been minimal, preserving clear impressions. The stride length measured normal for an adult male proceeding at walking pace through moderate snow cover. Direction of travel aligned roughly with the hunter's intended route. We followed the footprints for 47 minutes. At 14:34 hours, Reeves radioed a position update to base. We had covered an additional 2.3 kilometers following the track line. GPS coordinates placed us well within the search area designated for the missing hunters. The trail continued northwest, showing no signs of fatigue or distress. Whoever made these prints maintained steady pace and direction. Chen noted the unusual preservation of print details despite continuous snowfall. Under normal conditions, even light precipitation would have obscured fine features within 2 to 3 hours. These prints retained sharp edge definition and clear heel impressions. She photographed several examples for documentation purposes. The tracks never varied in depth or spacing. At 15:21 hours, we encountered the second set of prints. Identical size and pattern to the first, running parallel at a distance of approximately 3 meters. Both trail lines maintained perfect consistency. Same stride length, same depth, same direction. Palmer confirmed both sets originated from identical boot patterns, likely military surplus or high-end winter gear. Torino attempted radio contact with our missing hunters using emergency frequencies. No response received. He ran through standard lost party protocols, emergency whistle signals, reflected light patterns, vocal calls at maximum volume. The forest remained silent except for wind movement through spruce branches. The parallel tracks continued for another 1.8 kilometers before merging into a single line. No indication of interaction between the two sets of prints. No scuff marks, no altered pace, no deviation from the straight northwest heading. They simply converged and became one trail again. Dr. Chen collected snow samples from inside several footprints for later analysis. At 16:03 hours, we discovered the third set of tracks, then a fourth, then a fifth. By 16:30 hours, Palmer had documented 11 separate trail lines, all running parallel toward the tree line, all maintaining identical characteristics. Same depth, same spacing, same boot pattern, same unwavering northwest direction. Morrison's voice crackled through the radio during our scheduled 16:30 check-in. Cluane Base to Patrol 7, report status and position. I keyed the handset. Patrol 7 to base, following multiple foot track lines, 11 individuals proceeding northwest toward tree line, approximately 4 kilometers from last reported position, no visual contact established. Copy that, Patrol 7. Weather Service reports visibility dropping to 0 by 1800 hours. Recommend completion of sweep and return to base by 17:30. Understood, base. We'll maintain current heading for 30 more minutes, then begin return journey. The tracks continued through deepening snow without any change in characteristics. At 16:47 hours, Palmer made a discovery that contradicted everything we understood about winter survival. The footprints showed no signs of snow filling or ice formation inside the impressions. After hours of continuous snowfall, each print remained as clear and defined as if it had been made minutes earlier. Chen photographed this anomaly extensively, noting that normal physics would have caused some level of accumulation or wind drift within the depressions. Kowalski checked his equipment manifest and discovered our emergency flare count was wrong. The inventory sheet listed 12 flares, but physical count revealed only 8. No record existed of any flare usage during our patrol. He double-checked the manifest against base supply logs. The discrepancy persisted. The temperature was dropping faster than weather forecasts predicted. By 16:54 hours, our thermometer registered -41 Celsius, well below the -36 maximum indicated in Morrison's briefing. Chen began monitoring the team for early hypothermia symptoms. Kowalski distributed additional hand warmers from emergency supplies. Torino switched to backup radio batteries as equipment performance degraded in extreme cold. The footprint trail never wavered despite worsening conditions. At 17:01 hours, we reached the tree line. The 11 parallel tracks continued across open ground toward a ridge approximately 800 meters ahead. Snow conditions made distance estimation difficult, but the prints remained clearly visible against the white expanse. No other signs of human presence appeared anywhere in the vicinity. Reeves established our exact position using GPS coordinates. 60 dig 4733 N, 137 dig 09, 12W. We had traveled 12.6 kilometers from base camp, placing us near the northern boundary of our designated search area. The missing hunters' intended route passed within 2 kilometers of our current position. Then we saw them walking. 3 figures moved across the snowfield in single file, approximately 400 meters ahead of our position. Human silhouettes against the white background, proceeding northwest at steady pace. No winter gear visible at that distance, no obvious cold weather protection. They walked without pause or apparent difficulty despite the extreme conditions. Torino raised his binoculars and studied the distant figures for 30 seconds. No winter clothing, he reported. Standard civilian dress, no hats or gloves visible. They're not responding to the cold. I keyed the radio. Cluane Base to Patrol 7. We have visual contact with 3 individuals proceeding northwest across open terrain, no apparent winter protection, requesting immediate helicopter support for extraction. Morrison's response carried a new tension. Patrol 7, negative on helicopter support. Weather conditions prohibit flight operations. Proceed with ground contact and assessment. Dr. Chen studied the figures through her own field glasses. They're not exhibiting any cold weather behavior patterns. No hunched shoulders, no protective arm positioning, no indication of distress or discomfort. At minus 41 degrees, unprotected exposure should cause visible hypothermia symptoms within minutes. The 3 figures never slowed or altered course. We approached them across the snowfield, closing distance steadily. At 200 meters, details became clearer. 2 men and 1 woman, all appearing to be in their 30s or 40s, dressed in standard outdoor clothing, but lacking essential winter gear. No heavy coats, no insulated boots, no head coverings. They walked with mechanical precision, maintaining exact spacing and identical pace. At 100 meters, Palmer noticed their footprints. The tracks matched perfectly with the trail lines we had followed from the forest. Same depth, same spacing, same boot patterns. But something was wrong with the stride mechanics. Normal human walking creates slight variations in step length and angle. These prints showed no deviation whatsoever. At 50 meters, Torino called out, "Canadian Border Patrol, please stop and identify yourselves." The 3 figures continued walking. No acknowledgement, no response, no indication they had heard the command. Their pace never altered. Their direction never changed. They walked as if we didn't exist. Dr. Chen documented vital signs from our position. No visible breath vapor despite extreme cold. No shivering or involuntary movement. No obvious signs of frostbite or cold injury. Their behavior pattern is inconsistent with human survival instinct. We followed them for 23 more minutes. At 17:24 hours, the 3 figures approached another group walking ahead of them. Then another, and another. The snowfield contained dozens of people, all walking northwest in perfect formation, all dressed inadequately for the conditions, all moving with the same mechanical precision. Men, women, different ages and sizes, but identical movement patterns. Palmer counted 47 individuals visible across the snowfield. None acknowledged our presence. None responded to our calls. None showed any reaction to the life-threatening cold that was beginning to affect our own team, despite full winter protection. Kowalski's equipment readings showed continued temperature drop, minus 44 Celsius and falling. Chen reported early hypothermia symptoms in Palmer and Torino. Emergency protocols required immediate shelter establishment or return to base camp. I radioed Morrison. Cluane Base, Patrol 7, reporting multiple individuals proceeding northwest without adequate cold weather protection, approximately 50 people observed. None responding to contact attempts, request emergency medical support, and evacuation assets. Morrison's response was immediate. Patrol 7, return to base immediately. Weather conditions critical. All personnel report to debriefing upon arrival. Base, these people require immediate medical attention. They're walking unprotected in minus 44-degree conditions. Patrol 7, return to base now. That's a direct order. The figures continued walking into the growing darkness. During our return journey, Chen conducted equipment verification checks. Her camera had malfunctioned. None of the photographs of the walking figures had recorded properly. The memory card showed data corruption for all images taken after 1700 hours. Torino's radio logs indicated similar problems. Recordings from our contact attempts were missing or contained only static. Palmer noticed our return trail in the snow. The tracks we had made following the 11 parallel lines were still visible, but the original footprints we had followed were gone. Fresh snow had filled them completely, despite the protected forest environment where wind should not have caused such rapid accumulation. Kowalski discovered additional equipment discrepancies. Emergency supplies that should have lasted the full patrol duration were nearly exhausted, despite minimal usage. Medical supplies showed consumption patterns that didn't match Chen's distribution records. Battery levels on electronic equipment indicated power drain far exceeding normal operational parameters. We reached base camp at 20:34 hours, 34 minutes past our required check-in time. Morrison was waiting in the operations shack with two personnel I didn't recognize. Both wore civilian clothes but carried military identification. They identified themselves as environmental assessment specialists conducting routine air quality monitoring in the region. No explanation was provided for their presence at our remote base during a search and rescue operation. Individual debriefings began immediately. They separated us into different buildings. I was taken to the communications trailer where Morrison and the two specialists conducted what they called a standard operational review. The session lasted 4 hours and 17 minutes. Every detail of our patrol was examined, questioned, and re-examined. Particular attention focused on our observations of the walking figures. Morrison's questions followed a specific pattern. Are you certain about the number of individuals you observed? Could atmospheric conditions have affected your perception? Is it possible that cold-related stress influenced your interpretation of events? The environmental specialists asked technical questions about equipment performance and weather conditions. They showed particular interest in our GPS readings and radio communication logs. When I mentioned the corrupted photographs and missing audio recordings, they nodded as if this was expected. At 01:51 hours, they presented me with a typewritten statement for signature. Patrol 7 conducted routine search and rescue operations on February 15, 1989, within designated coordinates of Kluane National Park Reserve. No contact was established with missing persons. Weather conditions deteriorated beyond safe operational parameters, requiring early return to base. Equipment malfunction caused data loss in recording systems. No unusual circumstances were encountered. I refused to sign. Morrison informed me that cooperation was mandatory for operational security reasons. The environmental specialists explained that air quality issues in the region required temporary access restrictions. My observations were inconsistent with established atmospheric monitoring data. They kept me in the communications trailer until I signed the statement. Dr. Chen was released at 03:27 hours. Torino emerged from debriefing at 03:55 hours. Palmer and Reeves appeared at 04:21 hours. Kowalski was held until 05:03 hours for additional equipment inventory reconciliation. None of us were allowed to communicate during the debriefing process. Morrison assembled us in the operations shack at 05:30 hours for final instructions. Our patrol reports would be filed as weather-aborted search and rescue with no contact established. Equipment malfunctions were attributed to extreme cold conditions. All personnel would receive 3 days administrative leave before returning to regular duties. The environmental specialists remained at base camp for 2 more weeks. During my administrative leave, I attempted to research atmospheric monitoring activities in the Kluane region. No official records existed of environmental assessment operations in our patrol area during February 1989. Calls to environmental protection agencies in both Canada and the United States produced no information about air quality concerns or access restrictions. I returned to duty on February 21st to find our patrol area reclassified as temporarily off-limits due to potential radiological contamination from historical aircraft incidents. The restriction covered a 12-kilometer radius around our encounter location. All personnel were forbidden from discussing operational details of missions conducted in the affected zone. On March 2nd, Torino was transferred to administrative duties in Ottawa. Palmer received reassignment to training operations in Manitoba. Dr. Chen accepted a medical posting in Halifax. Kowalski was promoted and moved to logistics coordination in Calgary. Reeves remained at northern stations but was assigned to different patrol sectors. Morrison retired early with full benefits. During my final week at Forward Operating Base Kluane, I conducted unofficial monitoring of radio frequencies used by search and rescue operations. Multiple transmissions referenced ongoing activities in our former patrol area. Grid coordinates mentioned in these communications matched the location where we had observed the walking figures. On March 8th, I intercepted a transmission between 2 helicopter pilots conducting what they described as routine aerial survey of the restricted zone. Still have movement down there, same patterns as last week, count is up to 63 now. The response was partially garbled by static. Copy that, maintain altitude above 1,500 feet, no direct contact authorized, Continue documentation protocol. I attempted to photograph these transmissions with a tape recorder, but equipment malfunctioned during every recording attempt. My transfer orders arrived on March 12th. Reassignment to Border Patrol operations in Southern Ontario, effective immediately. Standard rotation, Morrison explained, with commendations for professional conduct during challenging winter operations. No mention was made of our February 15th patrol or the restricted zone designation. I departed Forward Operating Base Cluane on March 15, 1989. 3 months later, while reviewing newspaper archives in the Toronto Public Library, I found a brief article in the White Horse Star dated March 22, 1989. Temporary access restrictions established in Cluane National Park. The article cited environmental monitoring requirements and public safety precautions, but provided no specific details about the nature of the restrictions or their expected duration. In December 1989, I attempted to contact other members of Patrol 7. Torino's phone number in Ottawa was disconnected. Palmer's military records showed no current contact information. Dr. Chen's medical license indicated address changes every 3 to 4 months. Kowalski's personnel file was classified above my access level. Reeves did not respond to letters sent to her last known posting. Morrison's retirement address was listed as a post office box in Vancouver. During the winter of 1990, I took personal leave and drove back to the Yukon. The area around our former base camp remained under access restrictions. New warning signs had been installed along all approach routes. Danger, radioactive contamination, authorized personnel only. The signs carried both Canadian and U.S. government logos. Local residents in Haines Junction had no knowledge of any radiological incidents in the region. The RCMP detachment in Whitehorse confirmed that access restrictions remained in effect but could provide no information about their origin or duration. Environmental protection agencies referred all inquiries to military liaison offices. I spent 4 days observing the restricted area from public land near the boundary markers. Using binoculars, I could see helicopter activity on most days. Ground vehicles appeared intermittently along what looked like a newly constructed access road. No aircraft landed or took off within my observation range. On my final night in the area, I documented movement within the restricted zone. At 2147 hours, using telephoto camera equipment borrowed from a wildlife photographer in Whitehorse, I observed approximately 40 figures walking across the snowfield where we had first encountered the walking individuals. Same northwest heading, same mechanical pace, same apparent lack of cold weather protection. The distance was too great to determine if these were the same people or different individuals. The figures walked continuously for 2 hours and 17 minutes before disappearing beyond the range of my observation position. I exposed 4 rolls of film documenting this activity. Upon development in Toronto, all photographs showed only empty snowfields despite clear visibility and proper camera function during the observation period. In 1991, I accepted early retirement from the RCMP and relocated to British Columbia. Employment records indicate successful completion of all required service obligations with commendations for professional conduct and dedication to duty. No reference appears in my file to February 15th patrol operations or subsequent administrative leave. I established a private investigation consulting business in Vancouver and avoided any professional activities related to Northern Territories or cold weather operations. For 12 years, I maintained no contact with any personnel from Cluane Base or Northern Division Special Operations Unit. On November 3, 2003, I received a phone call at 0247 hours. The voice was female, unfamiliar, speaking with slight radio distortion. "Constable Hendricks, this is Dr. Chen. Do you still have the photographs?" I confirmed my identity and asked for her current location. The line went dead before she could respond. Call display indicated unknown number. In 2004, I hired a private investigator to locate current addresses for all members of Patrol 7. The investigation report indicated that Torino died in a traffic accident in 1995. Palmer was listed as missing person since 1997, last seen hiking alone in northern Manitoba. Dr. Chen's medical license was revoked in 2001 for undisclosed reasons. Kowalski's military records were sealed. Reeves was reported deceased in 2003, cause of death listed as exposure during solo winter camping trip. Morrison could not be located. On February 15, 2008, exactly 19 years after our original patrol, I received a package with no return address. Inside was a single photograph showing our Patrol 7 team at Kluane Base Camp. The image was clear and properly exposed, despite being taken with the same type of camera that had malfunctioned during our observations of the walking figures. Written on the back in Palmer's handwriting, "They're still walking." I destroyed the photograph according to instructions that seemed to appear in my memory without conscious recall. 2 weeks later, my phone rang at 0347 hours. The caller ID displayed my own home number. When I answered, I heard my own voice speaking words I had never said. "The prints in the snow keep extending. Don't follow them. Don't count them. Don't look back." The recording lasted 11 seconds before the line disconnected. Since 2008, these calls have occurred regularly, always between 300 and 400 hours, always displaying my own number as caller ID, always playing recordings of my voice making statements I have never made. The messages vary but maintain consistent themes: warnings about the walking figures, instructions to avoid the restricted area, acknowledgments that the official reports were false. I have changed phone numbers 7 times. The calls continue regardless of carrier or technology type. In 2012, I attempted to research current status of the Kluane restricted area using internet resources and Freedom of Information requests. Official records indicate the contamination designation was lifted in 1995 and normal public access restored. Satellite imagery shows no visible infrastructure or ongoing activity in the region. The restriction warning signs remain in place as of my last visit in 2014. On March 15, 2015, exactly 26 years after leaving Kluane Base, I drove back to the area for a final verification of current conditions. The approach roads were passable but showed minimal recent traffic. Warning signs had been updated with fresh paint and new mounting hardware, suggesting recent maintenance despite official records indicating unrestricted access. I established observation position at the same location used in 1990 and documented area conditions for 72 continuous hours. No helicopter activity was observed. No ground vehicle movement detected. No evidence of ongoing monitoring or maintenance operations. At 2151 hours on March 17th, I observed movement within the former restricted zone. Approximately 60 figures walked across the snowfield in perfect formation. Same northwest heading, same mechanical pace, same lack of apparent cold weather protection. Distance prevented detailed observation, but movement patterns were consistent with our original February 15th encounter. I did not attempt photography. The figures walked for 4 hours and 33 minutes before moving beyond visual range. At no point did they deviate from course, alter pace, or exhibit any behavior suggesting human consciousness or awareness of environmental conditions. Temperature that night measured -38 Celsius. I left the observation position at 200 hours on March 18th and drove directly back to Vancouver. During the return journey, my vehicle odometer advanced 847 kilometers, despite covering a known distance of 623 kilometers. Fuel consumption indicated normal driving patterns with no unexplained mileage. The additional 224 kilometers cannot be accounted for by navigation error or detour routing. On April 2, 2015, I received my final phone call from the unknown number displaying my own caller ID. The recording was longer than previous messages. "Constable Hendricks, this is your voice speaking words you will never say. The patrol report you signed was false. The people are still walking. The prints in the snow lead nowhere and everywhere. We counted 47. We counted 60. We counted more every time. Don't follow the tracks. Don't trust the reports. Don't believe the signs. The walking never stops." The recording lasted 47 seconds before disconnecting. I have not returned to the Yukon Territory since March 2015. The Kluane National Park Reserve website currently lists normal access conditions with no restrictions or warnings. Tourist information encourages winter activities and cross-country skiing in the region where our Patrol 7 conducted its final mission. No reference appears in any official documentation to environmental contamination, radiological incidents, or access limitations between 1989 and present day. According to all available records, our February 15th patrol was a routine search and rescue operation that was terminated early due to weather conditions. No unusual circumstances were encountered. No individuals were observed. No environmental concerns were identified. The official report I was required to sign remains the only authorized version of events. I am providing this statement now because the walking never stopped, and someone needs to know that the restricted area was never really unrestricted, and the people we saw that day are still out there in the snow, still walking northwest, still adding new tracks to trails that have no beginning and no end. Last week, I found a Kluane National Park visitor's guide in my mailbox. I don't subscribe to tourist publications and did not request information about Yukon travel destinations. The guide was opened to a winter activities page featuring a map of recommended cross-country ski routes. One trail was highlighted in red marker. The route passed directly through the coordinates where we encountered the walking figures on February 15, 1989. At the bottom of the page, someone had written in Palmer's handwriting, "Current count 127. I burned the guide, but the ashes spelled out GPS coordinates in the fireplace. 60 degrees Hawaii, 33 N, 137 green, 9, 12 W. Those are the exact coordinates where the footprints started.